The dinner party was supposed to showcase Dad's promotion to regional vice president. He'd invited his new boss, 3 senior executives, and their spouses. The dining room table was set with Mom's good china, the kind we weren't allowed to touch growing up. Candles flickered. Wine bottles lined the sideboard, expensive labels facing out. I was 24 and still living at home while saving for my own place. I'd been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 16 and managed it carefully with insulin and regular blood sugar monitoring. But tonight, something was off. I miscalculated my dinner insulin dose, stressed about being on display for Dad's colleagues. By 8:30, I was feeling wrong, shaky, sweating. I checked my blood sugar in the bathroom, 52. Dangerously low. I needed glucose fast. I came back to the dining room, interrupting Dad's story about closing a major deal. "Dad, I need some juice. My blood sugar's low." He glanced at me, irritation flashing across his face. "There's juice in the kitchen. Help yourself." "I'm feeling really dizzy. I don't think I can." "Michael," he cut me off, using my full name the way he did when he was angry. "We have guests. Go to the kitchen and handle it quietly." I made it to the kitchen, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely open the refrigerator. I grabbed the orange juice, tried to pour a glass. The carton slipped, juice splashing across the counter. Mom found me leaning against the sink, the room spinning. "Michael? What's wrong?" "Blood sugar. It's really low. I can't." She got me juice and made me drink it, but I was dropping fast. 52 was already dangerous. By the time the juice would work, I might be unconscious. "I need to lie down," I said. "I think I need to call my doctor." "Let's get you to the couch in the den, away from the party." But when we walked back through the dining room, I stumbled and grabbed the doorframe for support. Dad's boss, a man named Richard, noticed immediately. "Is he all right?" "He's fine," Dad said quickly. "Just had a bit too much wine earlier. Michael, go upstairs." "I didn't have wine," I said, my words slurring slightly. "I'm diabetic. My blood sugar." "Upstairs. Now." Dad's voice was steel. I tried to walk. Made it 3 steps. Then my legs gave out and I collapsed onto the carpet. The room erupted. Mom screaming my name, chairs scraping. Dad's voice cutting through it all. "Get up. Michael, get up right now." I couldn't get up. The world was tilting, darkening at the edges. I heard voices but couldn't make out words. "Should we call an ambulance?" That was Richard's voice. "No, he's fine." Dad's voice, tight with anger. "He's being dramatic. He does this for attention. Michael, stop this right now. You're embarrassing me in front of my boss." "Robert, he's not moving." Mom's voice, high with panic. "Because he's faking. Get up, Michael. This is ridiculous." Someone was shaking me. I tried to respond but couldn't form words. The darkness was closing in, that dangerous slide toward unconsciousness every diabetic fears. "I'm calling 911. A woman's voice, one of the executive's wives. "Don't," Dad said. "He's fine. This is what he does when he wants attention. Last month he pulled the same stunt. Last month he had the flu and was dehydrated," Mom said, her voice shaking. "This is different. His lips are turning blue." The darkness took me then. I have no memory of what came next. Mom told me later what happened. They tried to stop the woman from calling 911, said it was unnecessary, that I'd get up on my own. But she called anyway. The paramedics arrived in 6 minutes. My blood sugar had dropped to 38. They gave me an injection of glucagon and started an IV. Dad kept insisting it wasn't serious. Told the paramedics I was exaggerating, that I did this for attention. One of the paramedics, a middle-aged woman named Patricia, told him flatly that I was minutes from a diabetic coma, that if they'd waited any longer, I could have died. Dad said I was being dramatic. They transported me to the emergency room. I woke up there, hooked to monitors, IV in my arm. Mom was sitting beside the bed crying. Dad was pacing near the door, on his phone. The ER doctor, Dr. Sanchez, came in once I was stable. He looked at my chart, then at me, then at Dad. "Your son was in severe hypoglycemia. Blood sugar 38 when the paramedics got to him, dropping fast. Another 5 minutes without treatment and he would have slipped into a coma. Another 10 and we'd be having a very different conversation about brain damage or death." Dad crossed his arms. "He's diabetic. He knows how to manage it. You should have checked his blood sugar before dinner." I did check. I said weakly. I miscalculated my insulin. It happens. That's why I told you I needed help. You interrupted my dinner party. Dr. Sanchez stared at Dad like he was speaking a foreign language. Sir, your son nearly died tonight. Do you understand that? I understand he has a tendency to exaggerate his symptoms for attention. There's nothing exaggerated about a blood sugar of 38. There's nothing attention-seeking about nearly losing consciousness. If the paramedics had been delayed, if that guest hadn't called 911 when she did, your son would not have woken up. Dad said nothing, just stood there with his arms crossed, jaw tight. Mom was crying harder now. Robert, he could have died. He could have died in our dining room while you told people he was faking. He's fine now. That's what matters. Dr. Sanchez shook his head slowly. I've been an ER doctor for 20 years. I've seen a lot of things. But I've never seen a parent dismiss a life-threatening medical emergency as fake because it inconvenienced them socially. Are you criticizing my parenting? I'm documenting what happened here tonight. Your son presented symptoms. He asked for help. You denied that help and accused him of faking. A guest had to intervene to save his life. Yes, I'm documenting all of that. They kept me overnight for observation. Mom stayed. Ed left after an hour. Said he needed to salvage what he could of the evening and make apologies to his guests. The next morning, Mom drove me home. Dad was already at work. When he came home that evening, he didn't ask how I was feeling. He told me the dinner party was ruined, that Richard had been uncomfortable, left early, that the other executives spent the rest of the evening worrying instead of networking, that I cost him professionally. You nearly cost me my life, I said. Don't be dramatic. You're fine. That was the moment something broke. Not loudly, just a quiet snap of the last thread holding me to the idea that my father cared about me more than his image. I moved up 2 weeks later, found a small apartment, took on extra work to afford it. Mom helped with the deposit, secretly. Dad said I was being ungrateful after everything they'd done for me. I saw Mom regularly. Dad, I avoided. Over the next 3 years, I built a life, got a better job in tech sales, then a promotion, then another. I was good at sales, good at building relationships, good at reading people. The skills you develop as a child trying to manage a parent's ego translated well into managing client relationships. I bought a small condo, then sold it and bought a larger one. The tech market was booming. I invested well. By the time I was 30, I had enough to put a down payment on a house in Riverside Estates, a gated community on the north side of the city. The house had 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a pool, and a detached guest house in the back. It was more space than I needed, but it was an investment. Property values in Riverside were climbing fast. Mom was proud. She visited often, always on weekdays when Dad was at work. She never told him where I lived. The distance between my parents had become obvious. They slept in separate rooms, spoke to each other with cold politeness. Then last month, Mom called. I'm leaving your father. What? I should have done it years ago. After what happened with your diabetic attack. After watching him dismiss your near-death experience as embarrassing. I should have left then. Her voice was steady, resolved. But I'm doing it now. I found an apartment. I'm moving out this weekend. Does he know? He will. I'm telling him tonight. Dad didn't take it well. According to Mom, he was shocked. Couldn't believe she'd actually leave. Thought she was being overdramatic, that she'd come back after a few days. She didn't go back. The divorce was quick and uncontested. Mom didn't want anything except her retirement account and her car. Dad kept the house, the furniture, everything else. He thought he'd won. But without Mom's income, without her managing the household finances, Dad struggled. He'd always been careless with money, spending to maintain appearances, expensive dinners out, new cars every 3 years, country club memberships. 2 months after Mom left, Dad lost his job. The company was restructuring. His position was eliminated. He was 58, with a large mortgage and expenses he couldn't cut fast enough. He burned through his savings in 3 months. He couldn't find another job at his salary level and started missing mortgage payments. The bank foreclosed 6 months after Mom left him. Mom told me all this secondhand. She felt guilty but relieved. I should feel worse about it, she said. But he made his choices. He chose his image over everything real. Dad tried calling me once. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail asking for money, saying he was going through a rough patch. I deleted it. Last week, I was having coffee on my balcony, The one that overlooks the front of my property and the gate entrance to Riverside Estates. I saw a car park on the street outside the gate. An old sedan, dirty, packed with belongings visible through the windows. A man got out. Older, thinner, wearing rumpled clothes. It took me a moment to recognize Dad. He walked up to the gate call box and called my house number. I watched my phone light up with his name. I didn't answer. He stood there for 5 minutes, then got back in his car. The next day, he was there again. Same spot, same routine. Called the box. I didn't answer. He sat in his car for an hour before leaving. This went on for a week. He was living in that car, I realized, parking outside my gated community, hoping I'd see him, hoping I'd answer. Finally, he left a voicemail. Michael, it's Dad. I know you're there. I've seen your car in the driveway. I need help. I've been sleeping in my car. I lost the house. Lost my job. Your mom won't help me. I need a place to stay, just for a little while. Just until I get back on my feet. I know you have that guest house. I saw it from the street. Please, Michael, I'm your father. I stood on my balcony that evening, watching his car parked outside the gate. He was in the driver's seat, phone pressed to his ear, calling me again. I watched the phone ring. I didn't answer. From up here, I could see everything. My house, my pool, the guest house and back, empty and furnished, ready for guests who never came. And outside the gate, Dad sat in his car, surrounded by everything he owned, reduced to begging the son he called fake, the son whose near death he dismissed as embarrassing. Mom called that evening. He's been contacting everyone. My sister, your cousins, anyone who might give him money or a place to stay. Everyone's saying no. He's parked outside my house. I know. He told my sister he was going to camp out there until you helped him. Michael, you don't owe him anything. You know that, right? I know. That night at the dinner party, he chose his image over your life. He called you fake while you were losing consciousness. He told paramedics you were being dramatic. He cared more about impressing his boss than whether you lived or died. I remember. So you don't owe him anything. Not money, not shelter, not a second chance. She was right. I knew she was right. But the guest house was empty. 300 square feet of heated, furnished space that nobody was using. And outside my gate, my father was sleeping in a car. The next morning, I walked down my driveway to the gate. Dad saw me immediately, got out of his car, and walked to the bars separating us. Michael, thank God. Listen, I know we've had our differences, but I'm your father. I need help. Just the guest house. Just temporary. I'll pay you back when I find work. I looked at him through the bars. Thinner than I remembered, older, the sharp edges of arrogance worn down to desperation. You called me fake, I said. You told people I was exaggerating while I was going into diabetic shock. You said I was embarrassing you while I was dying. I made a mistake. I was stressed about work. I didn't understand how serious it was. The doctor told you I was 5 minutes from a coma. You still said I was being dramatic. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I should have listened. I should have helped. But that was years ago. Are you really going to punish me forever for one mistake? It wasn't one mistake. It was who you are. Who you've always been. Image over substance. Appearances over people. So you're going to leave me on the street? Your own father? I thought about the night of the dinner party, collapsing on the floor, Dad's voice. Get up. You're embarrassing me. The darkness closing in. The paramedic who saved my life while Dad insisted nothing was wrong. I thought about the guest house, empty and waiting. Yes, I said, I'm going to leave you exactly where you are, because you left me on the floor dying while you worried about impressing your boss. You made your choice that night. This is mine. I walked back up the driveway. Dad shouted after me. Something about family, about obligation, about not being or kind or decent. I went inside, closed the door, and went back to my balcony. He stayed in his car all day, left as the sun went down, came back the next morning. I stopped looking out the window. Hi, I'm Nancy. I'm in my early 30s, living in a beautiful suburban home with my husband Victor and our 2 adorable kids, Laura and Noah. From the outside, we probably look like the perfect family, but let me tell you, looks can be deceiving. I used to be a high-powered marketing executive, but I decided to stay home with the kids, thinking it was the best choice for our family. Little did I know, Victor had his own ideas. You're doing it wrong, he'd say, hovering over me as I changed Noah's diaper. Mrs. Hawthorne would never let him squirm like that. I grit my teeth and smile tightly. Well, I'm not Mrs. Hawthorne, am I? Clearly, he'd mutter, shaking his head. Mrs. Hawthorne. His childhood nanny, a name that had become the bane of my existence. According to Victor, she was a miracle worker, practically a saint, and he made sure to remind me of it. Daily. One day, while venting to my sister Emma about Victor's latest critique, apparently, I was woefully inadequate at making PB&J sandwiches, she sighed. Nancy, this isn't healthy. You need to stand up for yourself. I know, I said, but he makes me doubt everything I do. Later that week, my best friend Lena came over for coffee. Victor breezed into the kitchen, dressed for work, and zeroed in on Laura. Her hair is a mess. Mrs. Hawthorne always made sure I looked impeccable. Before I could respond, Lena cut in. Hey Victor, maybe you should call Mrs. Hawthorne for some tips on how not to be a jerk to your wife. Victor flushed red, but before he could retort, his phone rang. He turned to me after hanging up. We need to talk tonight. It's about the kids. That evening after the kids were in bed, he dropped the bomb. I've been in touch with Mrs. Hawthorne. She's retired now, but she's agreed to help raise the kids. Properly. I felt like the floor had been yanked out from under me. What? You can't be serious. I'm dead serious. The children need proper guidance and clearly you're not up to the task. Victor, they're our kids. I'm their mother. He waved his hand dismissively. And you'll continue to be their mother. Mrs. Hawthorne will just enhance their upbringing. I wanted to scream, to fight, to tell him exactly where he could shove this precious Mrs. Hawthorne. But I was worn down. His constant criticism had eroded my confidence. Against every instinct I nodded. Fine, if that's what you think is best. The day Mrs. Hawthorne arrived, I felt like a stranger in my own home. She swept in, all prim and proper, immediately reorganizing everything. Oh dear, this simply won't do, she said, rearranging the kids' toys. Children need structure, not chaos. I bit my tongue and tried to play nice, but over the next few weeks, she took over everything. Meals, bedtime routines, even story time. One evening, I tried to tuck Laura in, but she protested. No, Mommy, I want Mrs. Hawthorne to do it. Those words gutted me. Meanwhile, Victor was hardly ever home, always claiming he was busy with a big project at work. Late-night calls and hushed conversations became routine. Something felt off. I called Emma, desperate. It's like I don't exist in my own family anymore. This isn't right, Emma said firmly. Something's fishy with Victor, and this whole Mrs. Hawthorne thing is extreme. A few days later, Lena came over again. We were chatting in the living room when I overheard Mrs. Hawthorne in the kitchen with the kids. Now, children. We don't want to be like Mommy, always making messes and doing things wrong. My blood boiled. I stormed into the kitchen. Excuse me, what exactly do you think you're doing? Mrs. Hawthorne looked at me coolly. I'm teaching the children proper behavior. By badmouthing their mother, I was shaking with rage. Well, someone has to set a good example, she said with a smug smile. That was the final straw. How dare you? You have no right to come into my home and undermine me to my own children. Our voices rose, the argument escalating. Suddenly, Victor appeared in the doorway. What's going on here? He demanded. Before I could speak, Mrs. Hawthorne jumped in. Oh, Mr. Walker, I was simply instilling proper values in the children when your wife became hysterical. I stared at her in disbelief. That evening, as Victor turned to me with a disapproving look, his words cut through the silence like a knife. Nancy, I thought we agreed. Mrs. Hawthorne knows best. You need to stop interfering. Interfering? I echoed, stunned. In raising my own kids. I was speechless. That night, unable to sleep, I noticed Victor's phone buzzing on the nightstand. A text preview caught my eye. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe. Don't forget our meeting. My heart sank. The late nights, the secrecy, it all made sense now. Hands trembling, I picked up the phone and scrolled through the messages. Dozens of texts, all from someone named Maria. The next morning, while Victor was at work, I called a divorce lawyer and arranged to meet at a quiet cafe far from home. So what are my options here? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The lawyer gave me a reassuring smile. Given what you've told me about Victor's behavior and the situation with Mrs. Hawthorne, you have a strong case for both divorce and primary custody. Relief and anxiety washed over me in equal measure. What do I need to do? Document everything, she advised. Keep a journal, save texts, emails, anything that demonstrates Victor's actions or Mrs. Hawthorne's interference. That became my secret mission. I began keeping meticulous records, hidden in a password-protected app on my phone. At the same time, I reached out to old colleagues from my marketing days. Nancy, long time no hear. My former boss, Jake, exclaimed when I called. What's new? Actually, I'm looking to get back into the field. Any openings you know of? As a matter of fact, we arranged a lunch meeting, and for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. But at home, things only worsened. One night, Victor stumbled in well past midnight. Where were you? It's so late, I asked, unable to hide my frustration. His eyes flashed with anger. What are you, my keeper? I was working, not that it's any of your business. It is my business when you're never here for your family. Victor got in my face, his voice rising. Don't you dare question me. I'm the one keeping this family afloat while you sit around all day. The kids were starting to feel the tension. Laura had nightmares, and Noah became clingy and anxious. Mommy, why is Daddy always angry? Laura asked one day, her wide eyes filled with worry. I knelt down, my heart breaking. Sometimes grown-ups have big feelings, sweetie. But it's not your fault, okay? Desperate for support, I called Emma. We need proof of what's happening, she said. What about hidden cameras? It felt invasive, but I was out of options. Emma came over while Victor was at work, and we set up small cameras in the common areas of the house. What those cameras revealed was worse than I imagined. Victor's verbal abuse when the kids weren't around, Mrs. Hawthorne undermining me at every turn, and both of them conspiring to make me look unfit as a mother. Despite everything, I decided to make one last attempt to reach Victor. For the sake of the kids, I thought. I called his office. Hi, it's Nancy. Can we meet for lunch? It's important. There was a pause. Fine. The usual place. 1 o'clock. The restaurant was bustling when I arrived. Victor was already seated, looking impatient. What's this about, Nancy? I have a busy day. I took a deep breath. Victor, we need to talk about what's happening at home. The kids are suffering. He scoffed. They're fine. Mrs. Hawthorne is doing an excellent job. No, they're not fine. Laura's having nightmares and Noah's anxious. They need their father. They have me. I provide for them, don't I? It's not just about money, Victor. They need your time, your love. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, smirking. Is that more important than this conversation? I asked, frustration building. Maybe it is, he snapped. Unlike you, some of us have real work to do. That's when I asked the question I've been dreading. You're having an affair, aren't you? His face flickered with surprise before hardening. Don't be ridiculous. Who is she, Victor? Your secretary? He stood abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. You're hysterical, just like Mrs. Hawthorne said. As he stormed out, leaving me alone at the table, I felt an unexpected sense of calm. This lunch confirmed what I had known all along. There was no saving this marriage. The next morning, I set my plan into motion. I dropped the kids at school, then headed to my lunch meeting with Jake. As I walked into the offices of Victor's biggest rival company, my head held high. Welcome aboard, Nancy, Jake greeted me with a firm handshake and a grin. Ready to shake things up? I smiled back. More than ready. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table, a folder in front of me, waiting for Victor. When he walked in, his tie loosened and his expression weary. I met his gaze calmly. We need to talk, I said. He sighed, already irritated. What now? Without a word, I slid the folder across the table. Divorce papers. I suggest you read them carefully. His face turned crimson. What the hell is this? It's me taking back my life, I replied evenly. I have evidence of your affair, your verbal abuse, everything. He lunged for the folder, but I pulled it back. Aha! My lawyer has copies of everything, including footage of you and Mrs. Hawthorne plotting to turn the kids against me. His bravado crumbled in an instant. Nancy, baby, let's talk about this. We can work it out. I laughed. A real, unrestrained laugh. There's nothing to work out, Victor. It's over. The custody battle was brutal. Victor's lawyer tried to paint me as an unstable and neglectful mother. But when we presented the hidden camera footage, the courtroom fell silent. The judge's face hardened as she watched Victor and Mrs. Hawthorne scheming on screen. "Mr. Walker, this is deeply disturbing behavior," she said, her tone stern. When the judge granted me primary custody, it felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. Outside the courthouse, Laura and Noah ran into my arms. "Are we going home now, Mommy?" Laura asked, her voice hopeful. "Yes, sweetie," I said, holding them close. "We're going to our new home." As for Victor, his professional life unraveled as spectacularly as his personal one. News of his affair with his secretary triggered an internal investigation at his company. Between the scandal and the mounting evidence of misconduct, Victor was placed on leave. Within weeks, he was let go. 1 year later, I sat in my new office, gazing at a photo of the kids on my desk. My phone buzzed. It was Emma. "You won't believe what I just heard," she said. "Victor's new girlfriend left him. Apparently, he's facing some serious financial trouble." I felt a flicker of satisfaction, but mostly relief. It was finally behind me. "Enough about him," I said. "Are we still on for drinks tonight? I want to celebrate my promotion." That evening, I toasted with Emma and Lena, raising a glass to new beginnings. To Nancy, Lena declared, her grin wide. "The comeback queen." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. "To us," I corrected. "I couldn't have done it without you." As I looked around at my friends and thought of my kids at home, I realized I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Hi, I'm Mary, 28, a marketing executive at Dixon & Partners. I've always been proud of taking care of my mom, especially after she divorced Dad when I was 15. The apartment is perfect, honey. I can finally host proper dinner parties. Mom squealed on the phone as I helped her move into her new luxury apartment, the one I was partially paying for. I smiled, remembering how hard she worked raising me alone. "That's great, Mom. Just remember, it's a bit over budget, so we'll need to keep the extras in check." "Oh, darling, don't worry. You know how good I am with money," she said breezily. Later that week, while having coffee with my best friend Jennifer, Mom called again, her excitement palpable. "Mary, you won't believe who I met at the country club, Sandra Thompson, from Thompson Real Estate." "The Thompson Real Estate?" I asked, incredulous. "How did you end up there?" "Oh, I have my ways," she replied coyly. "Sandra and I just clicked. She's even invited me to her charity gala next weekend." Jennifer raised an eyebrow as I hung up. "Your mom, at the Thompson Gala? That's interesting." When my boyfriend Michael joined us a few minutes later, I filled him in on Mom's sudden social leap. She's been acting different. Last week, she showed me her Instagram and had edited old photos to hide the peeling wallpaper in our old apartment. Michael frowned. "That doesn't sound like her." Linda always used to be proud of how she managed as a single mom. That evening, I stopped by her apartment and found her practicing what she called her society laugh in front of a mirror. "Mom, where are all the family photos?" I asked, noticing the bare walls. "Of those old things." She waved dismissively. They didn't match the new decor. Sandra's decorator suggested something more modern. "Even the ones with Grandma and Grandpa. Your wedding photo." "Mary, let's be realistic. Those photos, they show a different time," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Sandra's crowd has certain expectations. You mean they show we're Chinese? That we're middle class?" "Mary, you don't understand. Sometimes we need to adapt." "Adapt? Last week, you told me to call you Linda instead of Mom in public." "Well, you're old enough now. It sounds more sophisticated." A text from Jennifer buzzed on my phone. "Your mom just posted about her summer home in the Hamptons on Facebook. Isn't that your cousin's beach rental?" I glanced at Mom, now balancing a book on her head as part of her poise training. The woman who once taught me character mattered more than appearances was vanishing before my eyes. "This dinner party will change everything," she said, not meeting my gaze. "The Thompsons are coming. Everything must be perfect." The night of the party, I arrived early with the expensive wine she asked for. The apartment smelled of catered French cuisine, undoubtedly charged to my credit card. "Mom, I got everything you needed. Do you need help with anything else?" "Just one thing," she said, handing me a black dress and white apron. "What is this?" I asked, confused. "Oh, just for tonight." "Please, Mary," she pleaded. Before I could protest, the doorbell rang. She rushed to greet Sandra Thompson, her husband Patrick, and their son Peter, all elegantly dressed. "Maria, come meet our guests," Mom called out, her voice honeyed. It took me a moment to realize she was talking to me. "This is Maria, my wonderful cleaning lady. She's such a treasure." Her words hit like a slap. I managed a polite nod, my face burning. "Linda, tell them about your daughter in Europe," Sandra gushed, the one doing her PhD. As I served appetizers, Mom spun elaborate tales about her daughter at Oxford, her summers in Monaco, and embassy parties with her late husband, the ambassador. My dad, a high school math teacher, would have laughed at the absurdity. Jennifer arrived mid-party, as Mom had forgotten she'd invited her weeks ago. "What are you wearing?" she hissed. "Apparently, I'm Maria tonight," I whispered back. Jennifer's jaw dropped as Mom continued weaving her web of lies. From small investments in the Thompsons' new real estate project to properties in Monaco, it all felt surreal. Later, after the guests left, I confronted her. "Mom, an imaginary daughter. Embassy parties, Monaco properties, and what about this investment with the Thompsons? Where did you get $500,000? "It's just temporary, Mary," she said, her voice trembling. "I needed to keep up appearances." "With my money?" "The apartment payments, the credit cards, don't be so dramatic," Mom waved me off. "Once the investment pays off, everything will be fine." "Mom, this isn't networking. It's fraud," I said, my voice shaking. "It's business," she snapped. "You're too naive to understand how things work in these circles." "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to call my broker about the Monaco property." I watched her stride away, still draped in her fantasy world, as if nothing had happened. A text from Jennifer lit up my phone. "Check your credit report now." Her insistence wasn't misplaced. My stomach dropped when I saw the results. 6 new credit cards opened in my name, all maxed out. The next morning, I stormed into Mom's apartment, the report clenched in my trembling hands. "How could you do this?" I demanded. "These cards aren't even in your name." "Lower your voice, Mary. The neighbors might hear," she said coolly, as if that were the biggest concern. "The neighbors? Mom, you stole my identity. You committed identity theft." "Borrowed," she corrected, crossing her arms. "I merely borrowed your excellent credit for a few investments. Once they mature, everything will be repaid." "Investments? You mean the fake Monaco property or the Thompson deal you can't possibly afford?" She rolled her eyes. "You're being hysterical. This is why I needed a more sophisticated daughter for my new circle. Someone who understands the importance of appearances." "You mean your fake Oxford daughter?" My voice cracked. Mom ignored me, already checking her phone. "Sandra's texting about the yacht club membership," she muttered as if I wasn't even there. At work the next day, I met a new hire. "Hi, I'm Emily Thompson," she said, offering a friendly smile. "I just transferred from the LA office." My stomach dropped. "Thompson." Over lunch, Emily proved refreshingly down to earth. "God, those charity galas my mom throws are so pretentious," she groaned. "Everyone's just there to show off. Must be tough dealing with all that," I said cautiously. "Right? Speaking of deals though, Mom won't shut up about this amazing investment opportunity. Some woman named Linda Chen convinced them to back a huge development project." I nearly choked on my salad. "Dad's usually super careful," Emily continued, "but this Linda person really worked her magic, got them to fast-track everything." That evening, Jennifer came over with takeout and her laptop. "Look what I found," she said, pulling up a series of documents. "Your mom's been very busy. Loan applications, investment proposals, wire transfers." "How did you get these?" I asked, shocked. "Peter Thompson sent them. He's been digging too." Jennifer clicked on another file. "Look, those investment documents your mom gave his parents? The signatures don't even match." My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Hey, weird question, but do you know Linda Chen? Mom's freaking out because some checks bounced." Before I could reply, my phone rang. "Mary, darling," Mom's voice cooed. "I need a tiny favor. Would you co-sign a small business loan?" "Just a formality." "Are you kidding me?" I snapped. "After everything you've done." "This attitude is exactly why I had to invent a better daughter," she said coldly. "Do you know how embarrassing it is to have a child who doesn't understand the importance of appearances? Do you know how embarrassing it is to serve dinner to your mother's friends as Maria the maid?" That was a compliment. Help is so hard to find these days. The following week was a blur of revelations. Jennifer found social media posts where mom claimed to own companies I'd never heard of. Emily reported her parents were growing uneasy about their investment. Peter unearthed more documents showing mom had convinced other wealthy friends to back non-existent properties. Then came the fallout. Letters from credit card companies demanding payments, banks questioning loan applications, and a notice from the IRS requesting clarification on suspicious transactions. Finally, mom called me, her voice trembling for the first time. "Mary," she whispered, "the Thompsons are asking questions about the properties." "The investments? I might have been a bit creative with some details," mom admitted when I confronted her. "Creative? You mean fraudulent." "Such an ugly word," she sniffed. "I prefer aspirational. Now, about that business loan." I hung up before she could finish. My phone immediately lit up with texts. "Emily. OMG, your mom is the Linda. Dad's lawyers are going crazy." "Jennifer. Check your email. More documents from Peter. It's worse than we thought." "Peter. My parents' lawyer would like to speak with you." The house of cards mom had built was finally tumbling down, and I had front row seats to the collapse. I sat in the Thompsons' lawyer's office, surrounded by stacks of evidence: Jennifer's recordings, Peter's documents, my credit reports, and dozens of fraudulent investment papers. "Your mother's activities are extensive," the lawyer said gravely. "The fake properties alone." "We'll handle all the legal details," Sandra Thompson interrupted. Then she turned to me with an accusatory look. "But Mary, darling, why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Tell you what? That my mother introduced me as the maid? That she invented a fake daughter because I wasn't good enough?" Sandra at least had the grace to look embarrassed. The dominoes fell quickly after that. Mom's wealthy friends discovered their investments were fake. The country club revoked her membership. The IRS flagged suspicious transactions. Her social media empire of lies crumbled as people realized every post was fabricated. Emily texted me later. "Did you see? Your mom tried joining the Sterling Club claiming to be a European duchess." I was typing a response when my boss called me into his office. "Mary," he said, "we've been impressed with how you've handled everything. We'd like to offer you the director of marketing position." That night, I celebrated my promotion with Michael and Jennifer at our favorite restaurant. As we toasted, my phone buzzed with a notification. Mom had filed for bankruptcy. "Good," Jennifer said, raising her glass. "Justice served." The next morning, a letter arrived from Mom. "Dearest Mary, I'm writing this from my new apartment, much smaller as you'd expect. You'll be disappointed to know that everything I built, well, borrowed, is gone. The Thompsons' lawsuit, the IRS investigation, the bankruptcy. I've hit rock bottom. But losing you hurts the most. I was wrong, so terribly wrong about everything. The fake daughter, the maid incident, the credit cards. I let superficial things blind me to what really mattered. You were always the perfect daughter. I was the imperfect mother. Please forgive me." I folded the letter and tucked it into my desk drawer. On my computer screen, a news article headline stared back at me. "Socialite Linda Chen faces federal investigation for investment fraud." The story was over. Now I have a question for you. What would you do if your own mother erased your existence to climb the social ladder? Would you give her another chance after an apology like this? Or would you, like me, maintain firm boundaries? The truth is, sometimes the people who should love us the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hi, everyone. I'm Patricia, and I never imagined an ordinary trip to Whole Foods could change my life forever. But fate has a way of surprising us. There I was, inspecting avocados for ripeness, when I accidentally backed into someone's shopping cart. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," I stammered, turning to apologize. Warm brown eyes met mine, framed by a kind smile that crinkled at the edges. "No worries," he chuckled, steadying himself against the cart. "I was totally in your blind spot." That's when I noticed his prosthetic leg, though it wasn't what held my attention. It was the way he smiled, effortlessly disarming. "I'm Rick," he said, extending a hand. "And you must be the avocado whisperer." I laughed, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. "Patricia," I replied. "And trust me, I'm terrible at picking them. I just pretend to know what I'm doing." What started as a chance encounter turned into an hour-long conversation in the produce section. Rick was a software engineer working on his own startup, and he seemed genuinely fascinated by my work as a physical therapist at Boston Rehabilitation Center. When I mentioned my profession, his grin widened. A physical therapist? My mom's going to love this, he joked. She's been trying to set me up with medical professionals for years. Says they'll understand my situation better. That's how I first heard about Karen Anderson. 2 weeks later, I met her at her elegant Beacon Hill townhouse. Karen wrapped me in a warm embrace the moment I stepped through the door. Rick's told me so much about you, sweetheart. A physical therapist. What a blessing. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson, I replied, glancing around at the stunning decor. You have a beautiful home. Oh, please, call me Karen. Or better yet, Mom, she said with a wink at Rick. I have a feeling you'll be around for a while. She was right about that. Rick and I fell hard for each other. His disability, the result of a childhood car accident, never defined him. It only made him more determined. His tech startup took off, and I thrived in my career. Within a year, we bought our dream home in Newton, a charming colonial with a wraparound porch. Karen was ecstatic, offering to help decorate. Darling, those curtains simply won't do. Let me call my interior designer, she insisted. She dropped by often, unannounced, with groceries or new home accessories. The kitchen would look much better if you arranged the appliances this way, she'd say. Or, that paint color doesn't match the neighborhood aesthetic. One night, after she rearranged our entire living room, I mentioned it to Rick. Your mom's very involved, I said gently. She's just excited, he replied, pulling me close. It's been just us since Dad died, and she can be a bit overwhelming with her love. Thank you for being so patient. I smiled and nodded, brushing away the slight unease in my stomach. She was just being helpful, right? Karen even took charge of our wedding planning. You focus on your career, sweetie, she said, patting my hand. I know exactly what my Rick would want for his special day. Looking back, I should have noticed how she emphasized my Rick, or how her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. But I was too caught up in my happiness, too blinded by the perfect life we were building. Then came the wedding reception. The Four Seasons ballroom was everything I had dreamed of. The night felt magical, until Karen stumbled toward the DJ booth, snatching the microphone from the singer. Everyone needs to hear this, she slurred, gripping the stand for balance. I froze mid-conversation, my bridesmaids' laughter fading into shocked silence. You all think Patricia is some perfect angel who saved my son, Karen sneered. Well, let me tell you the truth. The crystal champagne flute slipped from my hand, shattering on the marble floor. She's the one who ruined his leg, Karen shouted, pointing a trembling finger at me. She was his physical therapist after the accident. She deliberately botched his recovery for the insurance payout. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My boss, Dr. Thompson, was staring at me, his expression unreadable. Around the room, phones were already out, fingers flying across screens. Security, please escort Mrs. Anderson outside. Rick's voice cracked through the speakers as he grabbed a second microphone. Don't you dare shut me up, Karen shrieked. I have proof she's a fraud. She's manipulating my baby boy. 2 guards approached, but Karen jerked away, spilling wine down her designer gown. Ask her where she was working in 2010. Ask her about the malpractice settlement. I was a sophomore at UCLA, I whispered, but the damage was done. Whispers swirled, faces blurred. In the chaos, I fled to the bridal suite. Rick found me moments later, clutching a paper bag to my lips, struggling to breathe. Baby, I'm so sorry, he said, kneeling beside me. She's completely lost it. Everyone knows it's not true. A soft knock interrupted us. A petite woman with Rick's eyes peeked inside. Can I come in? She asked hesitantly. I'm Rachel, Rick's cousin, and I think there's something you both need to know. She perched on the ottoman, twisting her bracelet nervously. This isn't the first time Aunt Karen has done something like this. What do you mean? Rick asked, sinking onto the couch. Remember Jessica? Your fiancé from 3 years ago? Rachel said, her voice trembling. She left me at the altar. Said she couldn't handle the commitment. Rick replied, frowning. No, Rachel said softly. Aunt Karen cornered her at the rehearsal dinner. She threatened to expose some made-up scandal about her family's business. Told her she'd destroy her father's company if she married you. I felt the color drain from my face. Why didn't anyone say something? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Because Karen made sure Jessica looked like the villain, Rachel said. Just like she's trying to do to you now. She's been doing this for years, controlling Rick's life, driving away anyone who gets too close. Rick's phone buzzed continuously. Messages from confused guests, missed calls from business partners. Rachel showed us her phone. She's already posting about it on Facebook, calling for an investigation into the rehabilitation center. This is insane, Rick muttered, running his hands through his hair. I never even had a physical therapist in Boston. My rehabilitation was in Chicago. I have more, Rachel said, leaning forward, her voice steady but serious. A lot more. And if you're ready to hear it, I think it's time you both knew exactly what kind of person Karen Anderson really is. Commotion outside drew our attention. Through the window, we saw Karen in the parking lot, arguing with police, waving papers, and pointing at the building. She's trying to file a formal complaint, Rachel sighed. But this time, her lies are going to catch up with her. I promise you that. Looking at Rick's devastated face, I realized that our perfect wedding day had just become ground zero for a war I never saw coming. But watching Karen's erratic performance in the parking lot, I had a sinking feeling that she just made her biggest mistake yet. Back at home, Rick sat in stunned silence, staring at the stack of mail Rachel had retrieved from Karen's house. Investment statements, insurance policies, and bank documents, all addressed to him, but hidden in his mother's study. That's not even half of it, said Thomas, his father's former business partner, spreading more papers across our dining room table. Your father left you controlling interest in Anderson Tech, Thomas explained. Karen was only supposed to act as a temporary trustee until you turned 25. I'm 32, Rick said, his voice shaking. She told me Dad left everything to her, that I only got a monthly allowance because that's what he wanted. She forged your signature on these documents, Thomas said, pointing to transfer papers, moved millions into offshore accounts and used your disability as leverage, claiming you weren't capable of managing the fortune. My phone buzzed. Another email from the hospital board. I sighed, showing Rick the message. They're suspending me next week, I said. Karen's convinced them I'm a liability. Rachel scrolled through her phone and shook her head. Look what she just posted in the Boston Business Forum. The post detailed Rick's supposed severe PTSD and cognitive issues stemming from his childhood accident. The comments were already piling up, potential investors expressing concern about backing his company. Your mother's systematic, Thomas said, shaking his head. She's trying to make you both look unstable and incompetent. The phone rang, startling us. It was the hospital's emergency line. Mrs. Anderson was just admitted with severe chest pains, the nurse said. She's asking for Rick. Rick grabbed his keys immediately. Wait, Rachel said, locking the door. Call the hospital directly. One phone call revealed the truth. Karen had never been admitted. But by the time we realized her deception, Rick had already missed his investor meeting. His biggest backer pulled out, citing concerns about leadership stability. She cost us the Series B funding, Rick said, slumping into a chair. 2 years of work, gone. Look at these bank statements, Thomas said, pointing to suspicious transfers. She's been siphoning money from your trust fund into her personal accounts for years. Using your social security number, Rachel added. And if something else. Remember how she claimed she paid for your surgeries? Rick nodded, his expression wary. The insurance documents show your father's policy covered everything. Karen had pocketed the donations from Rick's accident fund, a betrayal that became just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The doorbell rang, interrupting our tense discussion. A courier handed me a thick envelope. Inside were medical records Karen had sent to my licensing board, supposedly proving my negligence. But the dates didn't match and the signatures were clearly forged. She's getting sloppy, Thomas muttered, gathering the evidence. These forgeries, the fake hospital emergency, the social media posts, she's leaving a trail. What do we do? I asked, watching Rick stare silently at his father's old photos on the mantel. We don't do anything, Rachel said with a grim smile. Karen's already done enough. These documents, Thomas said, holding up the forged papers, are going straight to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. An anonymous tip. Let's see how she handles real investigators asking about fraud and identity theft. She'll claim she was protecting me, Rick said bitterly. Not this time. Thomas pulled out a final document, Your father's original will. I kept a copy in my personal safe. Wait until the authorities see how different it is from the one Karen pervaded. Looking at the evidence spread across our table, years of theft, lies, and manipulation laid bare, I realized that Karen's greatest weapon had always been our silence. But now, her desperation to destroy us had created a paper trail that would finally bring her down. Turn on the news, Rachel's excited voice came through the phone. The TV lit up with breaking news footage of Karen being escorted from her real estate office in handcuffs. Her designer suit clashed sharply with the FBI windbreakers surrounding her. Mrs. Anderson is charged with multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement, the reporter announced. Sources say the investigation began after suspicious activity was detected in offshore accounts linked to Anderson Tech. Rick squeezed my hand as his mother's mugshot appeared on the screen. I can't believe it's finally over, he said quietly. The following weeks brought an avalanche of revelations. Karen's obsession with destroying me had led her to bribe a hospital clerk for access to patient records, attempting to fabricate evidence of negligence. The clerk reported her, triggering a broader investigation. The feds found everything, Thomas explained during a meeting with prosecutors. Tax evasion, embezzlement from Rick's trust fund, even insurance fraud from the donations she collected after his accident. Karen's real estate empire crumbled as clients fled. The Boston Globe ran a scathing expose titled "Socialite's Web of Lies Unravels." Her country club membership was revoked, and former friends pretended they'd never known her. 15 years, Rick mumbled after the sentencing. She'll be in prison for 15 years. The restitution hearing is next week, Rachel reminded us. They're seizing her assets to repay what she stole from you. We used the recovered funds to launch the Anderson Wilson Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping people with disabilities access rehabilitation services and career support. Rick's tech company shifted its focus to developing affordable prosthetics, while I continued my work at the Rehabilitation Center, now as director. 6 months later, I received a letter from the prison. The shaky handwriting was unmistakably Karen's. I did it all for Rick. You'll never understand a mother's love. I dropped the letter into the shredder without finishing it. The foundation approved 10 new scholarships today. Rick announced that evening, his prosthetic leg propped on our coffee table. Kids who couldn't afford physical therapy before. And guess who called? I said, grinning, Jessica, your ex-fiancée. She's joining our board of directors. Through the window, the lights of the foundation's new building glowed against the Boston skyline. Somewhere in a federal prison, Karen sat in a gray cell, stripped of her designer clothes and social status, while we turned her decades of harm into hope for others. Ready for the gala tonight? Rick asked, adjusting his tie. The governor's attending. Let me guess. I smirked. Mom won't be making it to this party. Nope, he laughed, pulling me close. But I hear the prison cafeteria serves excellent rubber chicken. We had taken Karen's poison and turned it into medicine. Her destruction became the foundation of something greater. As we walked hand in hand to the gala, I realized that some happy endings don't come from forgiveness, they come from finally breaking free. What would you do if a mother-in-law tried to destroy your career with false accusations? Share your thoughts below.